Hello, everyone. My name is Robert. Welcome back to Unraveling Politics, a show where I discuss the news of the day, the political news of the day, and I provide my analysis in a way you can understand. And we have not talked about the presidential election, at least not directly, in a while. It has been a couple of weeks. I wanted to give everybody a bit of a break because we know that's what the mainstream media has been covering for a very, very long time. Let's take a look at some of the current models and let's see what it says. According to 538, they have as of Saturday, which is when I'm recording this episode. 538 said that they had a 52% chance of Donald Trump winning, and I believe Nate Silver, who is now on his own, he's independent now, is at 40. Trump is at 53 or somewhere around there. It's very close. The point is, it is 50-50. The race is pretty much as close as it can be, and the state polling bears that out. 538 has Pennsylvania as a 50-50 toss-up, and whoever wins Pennsylvania will almost certainly win the presidency. Wisconsin they have it at 51% for Harris. Michigan 49% for Harris. 49% for Trump. 63% for Trump in Arizona, 52% for Trump in Nevada, 63% for Trump in Georgia, and then 58% for Trump in North Carolina. I would agree with all of that. And then Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, which has one electoral vote, that Trump has a 16% chance of winning. And in the House of Representatives, I'll throw this out there, they have a 53% chance of a Republican majority. And they estimate that it will be 218 seats to 217 seats. So they basically say the Republicans would lose 4 of their seats that they won at the last election, which one of them is already flipped because George Santos, the lying congressman, has already lost his seat, so that would be really losing 3. And what does this mean? Well, the election is pretty close. And as I was talking to Joe off air, he said that Georgia, the fact that Trump is leading in Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada, well, maybe not Nevada, but he's leading in the Sun Belt states, which would be Texas, Florida, Arizona, and maybe I guess you could throw in Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina. Trump needs those states to win. Kamala doesn't really need them to win. It would certainly be helpful, and it would pad her victory, but it wouldn't. She doesn't need them to win. She and Trump both need the Rust Belt. If they can win in the Rust Belt, then they win the presidency. And that's pretty much true with both of them. It would be very unlikely Trump would win in the Rust Belt and then Harris would win in the Sun Belt, and if it was vice versa, Trump wouldn't win at all. Let me throw that out there. And Real Clear Politics has Trump ahead in Pennsylvania by 0.5. North Carolina, Trump is ahead by 1. Georgia has Trump ahead by 1.1. Nationwide, Democrats are up by 1.4. The generic ballot, which is, as I've talked about in previous shows, Republican is in Congress versus Democrats in Congress. Democrats are up by 0.9. Wisconsin, Republicans are up by 0.1. Nevada, 0.5, and Michigan, 0.5. So the states that Trump is leading in, it's almost all of them are less than 1%, which is within the margin of error. And some of these polls are adjusting for the fact that in previous elections, Trump has received more in the actual election than was expected by the polls. And that has, I believe, been factored in. And then 538 is pretty similar. They still have Democrats leading in some of the states because they're a little bit more selective about the polls that they let in. The one bright spot for Democrats is that Kamala Harris has a much higher favorability rating than Donald Trump does. Her favorability rating is minus 0.8, which is pretty good for a politician. Trump is minus 9.4, which means that 9% more people dislike him or disapprove of him than approve of him, which is impressive. But the story is, and I want to say this, don't look at the polling now, look at the trend. The trend is Kamala is going down slightly, which is concerning for her camp if you're on her side, but I wouldn't be overly panicked just yet. She had a Fox News interview this past week, and it didn't go very well. It was with Bret Baier. I don't really know much of the details. I didn't watch it. I know 7 million Americans did, but it's not I don't think that's going to change the election very much, although the betting markets, as I'll talk about in a little bit, they reacted heavily to that. Why might this be the case? Why might Harris be losing her lead nationally and in the swing states? Well, if you ask me, Harris has put herself out there a lot in the last few weeks, and she hasn't done a great job. For example, she was on The View a few weeks ago, and this was played at the Trump rally that I was at, I talked about in the last episode, is she said she wouldn't change anything about the last 4 years. And I'll tell you, when I heard that, my view of Kamala went down dramatically. I was a lot less happy because I was very unhappy with Biden, and wasn't super happy with Harris, but I was willing to give her a look. Like, okay, this might be a fresh voice, but if she's going to do everything exactly the same, she basically is the incumbent. And Trump was definitely right when he said that Kamala is Biden. She is Biden. She's not any different than Biden. She would do the same things as Biden. She has said that clearly, plain as day. And I've talked to Democrats and Democratic-leaning people, and they are very concerned about the polls as her lead has eroded in almost every swing state. It is now as close to a toss-up as it can be. The polls are factoring in that previously Trump and the other two elections, they did not get they did not get his supporters, like they did not count all of them. If they are still undercounting, then Trump will clearly win the election. I would still say, as I explained, or as I might have already explained, or as I will explain, Kamala is still my favorite to win. Now, I wrote a couple of weeks ago some things that I suggested that Donald Trump could do to turn the election around back when he was still behind. And he's actually done some of these things already. What I suggested was he stopped talking about the 2020 election and he remained focused on the future. He hasn't really done that. That would be my advice going forward. No more presidential debates. Clearly not going to help him. We were kind of in the same situation before the debate where her lead was dropping, and then he didn't do very well, and then she went back up. So no more presidential debates. It doesn't look like there will be. We are getting pretty late. If there is no debate like announced this week, there's not going to be another one. I suggested that Trump scale back on abortion rights. He has said that he will veto a national abortion ban, which is good politically. It might upset his base, but his base has no choice because they either have to vote for him or they get Kamala. And my other suggestion was to tell J.D. Vance to shut up and put him in a closet. He has done a lot better. I'd still be wary about him, maybe only send him to safe states, but he's doing a lot better in interviews, and the debate he did decently well. And I would suggest that Trump focus on the economy as well as tax cuts for the middle class, which he has. I would tell him to stop talking about the tariffs. That's not going to be good. And he's been listening to this person. I don't even know who she is, Laura Loomer. And I would get rid of her immediately. She is a far right, maybe even QAnon, probably QAnon person, and I would not listen to anything she says. She lost a race for Congress 2 or 4 years ago. If you lose an election and you don't run again, then you clearly don't know what you're doing. And I would also suggest he not attempt to repeal or replace Obamacare. He tried that, almost 8 years ago, and that didn't work. And I also suggested that he would stand close to Israel and agree to work with Ukraine on an establishing peace. He has stand pretty close to Israel. He has not done the last part. And my last thing, and I literally wrote this. I have on my notes September 25th. And I suggested that he work with Netanyahu to make sure the ceasefire deal collapses and expands the war in the Middle East, which has exactly happened. The reason for that is because that'll put Kamala and the Biden administration on edge. It's going to keep the Middle East in the news, and a lot of people are concerned that Kamala's supporters, especially in Michigan, people that would vote for Kamala, a lot of Arab Americans are in Michigan as well as in other swing states, are not going to come out. They're either going to pick Kamala, they're going to vote third party, like Chase Oliver, who wants to end the war in Gaza, or maybe, I don't know about Jill Stein, or they're going to choose the couch. So that's something that he's getting better. He's taken some of my suggestions, and I didn't even mention them on the show until now. It's just, crazy things have been happening, and I have not been able to focus on some of the things that I wrote out a long time ago. Alrighty. Well, let me throw out there that early voting has begun in many states. I door knock on weekends for a local candidate in my area, and he and we encounter people that have voted already. I literally just filled out my mail-in ballot. I'm going to drop it off in a couple of hours. Clearly, people are voting. Early voting numbers seem to be good for Democrats. There's a lot of Democrats that have requested mail-in ballots. I think over 1 million people in Pennsylvania have requested a mail-in ballot. Most of them are Democrats, which is to be expected. And then let me throw in the Senate. Sherrod Brown, a Democrat in Ohio, is leading by about 1%. Representative Elise, I believe her name is Elise Slotkin in Michigan, she's not an incumbent, but she's running to replace a retiring Democrat, is up by about 2 to 3, 2 to 4, depending on the poll. Ted Cruz in Texas, Republican, of course, he's not very popular. He's leading by about 4%. Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin is in deep trouble. She is falling, and if Trump wins the state, she could lose her seat. She's currently leading by about 3%. Casey in Pennsylvania is leading by about 4, maybe 4 to 5, depending on who you count. Jon Tester in Montana, he is definitely in trouble. He's almost certain to lose his seat. He is between 5 and 7 points behind. So I have that seat as likely Republican. Pennsylvania, the Democrats will probably hold that seat. Wisconsin and Ohio are toss-ups, and then Texas is likely to stay with the Republicans, and Michigan is likely to stay with the Democrats. And let me see what else. What else have I not talked about? What I have still my personal model, which I showed you the Senate elections, I still expect 51 Republicans, 49 Democrats. I still expect a Kamala Harris victory. I expect her to win 276 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 262. That's currently what I have, and I expect her to win the 3 Rust Belt states and Nevada, as well as Nebraska's the second congressional district, and I also expect Trump to win the rest of the states, the rest of the swing states. Now, in reality, will this actually happen? Probably not. Whoever wins the election will probably win most, if not all, of the swing states. If Trump wins, he's probably going to win every swing state. If Kamala wins, she'll probably win every swing state, maybe except like North Carolina or Georgia or Arizona. Maybe she won't win one of those. Now, let me throw out there, this is kind of a quick thing here. According to the Chicago Sun-Times, Governor Tim Walz, self-described knucklehead during the debate, has said that Democrats are the underdog. He said that at a fundraiser. I don't know if he's just saying that because, you say that at a fundraiser so people are like, oh, let me give you money, or if he was saying that because that's what he actually believes. So I'll leave that up to you. Axios reported that Bob Casey and Tammy Baldwin had Trump images in their ads. Now you might think, all right, whatever. They have Trump images in their ads. That's usual. Except this was a little bit different. They were actually courting Trump voters. They were trying to get people who would vote for Trump to support them. So, for example, in the ad, Bob Casey, the narrator says, Casey bucked Biden to protect fracking and sided with Trump to end NAFTA and put tariffs on China to stop them from cheating. And then Tammy Baldwin, in her ad, the narrator said, Tammy Baldwin got President Trump to sign her Made in America bill. And Elise Slotkin, who's, of course, she's not an incumbent, but she's running for re-election or running for a new term to hold a Democratic seat, said she got Trump to sign a law forcing drug companies to show their actual prices. And then Tester and Brown have also tied to Trump as well. And what is the crazy thing about all this is every single name I mentioned, Casey, Baldwin, Slotkin, Tester, and Brown, they all voted to impeach Donald Trump. Not just voted to either impeach or to convict. And get this, not just once, but twice. They both voted to get rid of Donald Trump and remove him from office twice, and now they're courting his voters. I thought that was so interesting, and I wanted to mention that. And they're and in the case of Bob Casey, is dumping on Biden, which is hilarious, considering Biden won Pennsylvania, but at the same time, he is not very popular anymore. He was never really that popular, but he's definitely not popular now, and they're trying to kind of distance themselves, which is smart. That's good. Let me throw in here, I haven't really talked about this too much, but what do we expect on election night? Do we expect the big red mirage that we saw 4 years ago? And the answer is sort of, but not quite as bad. Michigan, they voted, according to NBC, voted to speed up vote counting, and they will begin counting absentee ballots before Election Day. This should help limit the red mirage. Officials in Detroit said that they expect to have 90 to 95% of the results in by 11 p.m. on election night, as opposed to last time where it wasn't done until midway through on Wednesday. So I would expect Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, and Michigan to report their results relatively quickly. The reason why Georgia and North Carolina took so long last time is because it was so close. North Carolina was sort of obvious, but it wasn't clear until later in the week that Biden would win Georgia. So unless it's razor tight, I wouldn't expect results, but I would expect Arizona to be done relatively quickly, and then Michigan should hopefully be done quickly. However, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Nevada are going to take a lot longer. And Nevada is famous because there was the meme in 2020 with Nevada comparing it to Internet Explorer, which is absolutely right because they took literally forever. They weren't even counting thousands of ballots at a time; they were counting hundreds of ballots. It was very, very slow. Nevada, I think, might have been the last state to count. I think even Alaska beat them, which is pretty embarrassing. So, will we have a clear result on election night? Probably not. We're definitely not going to know the House. We're probably going to know who's won the Senate. If Democrats lose their seat in Montana and or Ohio, then it's gone. It's over. But we're probably not going to know on election night who is going to be the president. We should have a good direction, and I'm hoping by the end of the day on Wednesday, November the 6th, we will know. Alrighty, let me throw in here. And as I mentioned, Milwaukee is not sure when they will be ready. Milwaukee and Wisconsin, they said they will definitely not be having their complete results in by election night. That's definitely not going to happen. The betting markets currently have Trump as plus 17.1. They have a 57.8% chance of a Trump victory, and they have a 40.9% chance of a Harris victory. And what does that mean to betting markets? I mean, of course, they're like the stock market. They go up and down quite crazy. As I said, I would still put my money on a Kamala victory for reasons I could explain in a later episode. But I'm not going to get into it too much here. But I do worry that there are a lot of the polls are overestimating Trump for reasons I explained earlier. And as I said, 276 to 262. And if you take out, considering I consider Wisconsin and Pennsylvania to be toss-ups, if you take those out, it's 247 to 262. I would still give Michigan a slight favor to Kamala. Alrighty, that is pretty much all I have to say. I know this is a shorter episode than usual. I will have something else coming out later this week. I have not exactly decided the day, but I do hope that to have that out, and it'll be kind of a companion video. I'll be speaking about what a Trump and Harris administration will look like, or Trump or Harris administration would look like. So I want to thank you for listening, and have a great afternoon and week. Bye-bye.